And there he is.
Hello again, friends, and you are our friend. I am your slightly mischievous and always irrepressible home inspector, Vito, and welcome to another exciting edition of Family Affair, where we're going to lay the smackdown on the home inspection. And it is my pleasure to announce to you from the red corner, hailing from parts unknown, weighing in at 187 pounds, he is the reigning, defending, undisputed world heavyweight rock solid champion, the Ayatollah of rock and rolla, the great Stephen J. Baum.
Vito, sir, I haven't been 180 in many, many, many years. So I do appreciate that compliment. I hide it well, I guess. But thank you, everybody, for joining. We are coming into the home stretch of our Zoom classes around Inspect the Inspection. Today's is around plumbing, and then I think next week is HVAC. And then we'll take a little bit of a break and try and figure out some different ways to add value to everybody. We do appreciate those that have joined many of our calls. We do appreciate the first time. Our goal is to be able to provide you the knowledge that you need to help your buyers better understand some of the things that go on in a home inspection, better understand what the inspection report itself says, and to put you in the best position possible to be the best partner to your buyer that you can be, and then for us to be the best partner to you and to your buyer that we can be. So we do thank you for joining us. I don't want to take up too much thunder and time because I know these subjects have quite a bit of information. I will just remind everybody before we get started is Deanne's keeping an eye on the chat room. So if you have any questions as we go through, please feel free to throw a message on there, and Deanne will get Vito's attention and we'll make sure that we get it asked. We are recording this, so it'll be on our YouTube channel. Vito, before we do get started, please remember to place everybody on mute so we can all hear all of that great information that's in the head of yours. Just the information on inspections, Vito. We don't need everything else that's in that head of yours. Yeah, there's the chuckle.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea, Stephen. I'll keep it, family friendly as always. Thanks again,
You always
everybody.
do.
Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Today we're going to talk about the plumbing section with regards to what to expect in your home inspection. So, as always, we're going to jump right in. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to talk about what exactly are the standards of practice for doing a home inspection, right? The first thing, what screen are we seeing? Are we seeing the same one I had? All right, let's leave it there. Sorry. So the standards of practice that we follow are really just a base in nature. There are a minimum set of standards. You'll find that in a rock solid home inspection, we exceed the standards of practice. We've decided that the only way to treat every customer like family and inspect the home like it was our own is to exceed them. But let's start with this. The inspector shall inspect the main water supply shutoff valve, ditto for the fuel, the water heating equipment, the venting connections, the TPR valves, the Watts 210 valves, and seismic bracing. The Watts 210 valves are just like the TPR valves, but think gas, or when the water heater is, say, 3 or 4 walls away from an exterior wall, because it does have to drain the outside. The interior water supply, including all fixtures and faucets by running the water, and that is two fixtures simultaneously. Toilets for proper operation by flushing, all sinks, tubs, and showers for functional drainage, drain, waste, and vent system that includes crawl space, attics, and roof, and any sump pumps with accessible floats. That's rare, but they are out there. The inspector shall describe whether the water supply is public or private based on observed evidence, the location of the main water supply shutoff valve, ditto again for the fuel, the location of any observed fuel storage system. So if it's a buried oil tank, we're not going to be able to tell you that necessarily. There are instances. And the capacity of the water heating equipment if it's labeled. We shall report as in need of correction any deficiencies in the water supply by viewing the functional flow in 2 fixtures operated simultaneously, deficiencies in the installation of hot and cold water faucets, active plumbing water leaks, and toilets that were damaged or loose, leaking, or just didn't work. Now, the inspector is not required to light or ignite pilot flames. That's a big one. If it's gas and it's been off for a while, it's always good as a real estate agent for you to know that in advance. It's just another thing to not have to deal with later, making sure it's lit. Measure the capacity, temperature, age, life expectancy, or adequacy of the water heater. Even though those of you who have worked with us before know we take temperature picks at every supply in the house, it's not a requirement. It's a visual inspection only. It always blew my mind, but you know what? We exceed that, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. We're not required to inspect the interior flues or chimneys, combustion air systems, water softeners, filtering systems, well pumps or tanks, floor drains, safety shutoff valves, sprinkler systems, or fire sprinkler systems. I can tell you that when we do an inspection, we are looking at the flue, if we can reach it from the fireplace. It's not by any means exhaustive, but we'll try to get as much of a view as we can and take that picture. Ditto, sprinklers, we do a courtesy check every time. We want to make sure that we get water when we call for it. And go from there. Now, water softeners are a little bit weird. We can tell you that one's there. We can tell you if we see it, something's obviously leaking, but really there's really no way for me to tell you if it's softening the water properly. We're not required to determine the exact flow rate, volume, pressure, temperature, or adequacy of the water supply, determine the water quality, potability, or reliability of the water supply or source, open any sealed access panels, inspect clothes washers or their connections, but we do. They ask it on the 4-point. We do it during the home inspection. We run it through a cycle. It's a courtesy check. We do it. And we run the manufacturer's label against recall check. If any of them are on a recall list, your client's going to know about it. Operate any valve. That's a big one. Why are we not required to operate any valves? There are plenty of houses that have the water shut off. And you know what? Most of those are fine. You turn the water on, no big deal. Until you get the one that either had plumbing work done and it isn't finished, or there's massive leaks and the seller's trying to hide it and they're just waiting for somebody to booby trap. Those people do exist. So if we come to a house and we find that the water shut off, we're going to do a couple things. One, we're going to call you as the buyer's agent, and we're going to ask for some more information. We do carry the big T valves if they're shut off at the meter and they're not locked out or tagged out by the utility company. We're going to ask to get a hold of the seller and get permission to turn the water on. Ditto for under sinks and toilets and things like that. And but what we're not going to do is just let you find out later, sucker punch you, and then you're left to clean up a mess. We'll work with you. We're not required to test shower pans, tub and shower surrounds or enclosures for leakage or for functional overflow protection. So that's a little bit of a tricky one because most of that stuff is hidden from view. We can't see it. However, with every rock solid home inspection, we're scanning the home with a thermal camera. We're testing with moisture meters. We're running all the plumbing for 30 minutes to make sure there's no issues. And every home inspection is backed by our 90-day warranties and guarantees. So again, another instance where we try to protect the client and you and us as much as possible. Evaluate the compliance with conservation, energy, or building standards with the proper design or size and ready water, waste, or venting components, fixtures, or piping. That one's as is. Determine the effectiveness of anti-siphon backflow prevention or drain stop devices. You know, every once in a great while, I get a call from an upset customer. They've driven across country. They just bought the house. They took possession of it. They're tired. They're sore. They filled up the bathtub, and the water starts slipping. You know what? I apologize. We make sure it works, but we're not, you know, measuring the flow rate or how well it's holding water or anything like that. And it's not part of a home inspection. We do the best we can without, you know, making it so exhaustive that we price ourselves out of the market. We have to keep it competitive. Evaluate fuel storage tanks, inspect wastewater treatment systems, inspect water treatment systems or water filters, inspect water storage tanks, pressure pumps, bladder tanks. Evaluate wait time to obtain hot water. I turn the water on, it gets hot, I take a picture, it's working. If there's something, you know, unreasonably long, we're going to include that in the report, but usually it's either getting hot or it's not. And I'll show you again what that looks like. Evaluate or determine the adequacy of combustion air. Think like a gas forced air furnace. Test, operate, open or close safety controls, manual stop valves, TPR valves, control valves, or check valves. Examine ancillary or auxiliary systems or components such as, but not limited to, those related to solar water heating and hot water circulation. You know what, when it comes to solar panels and on the roof, really we're just looking for the visible connections, the penetrations where they go through the roof. We want to make sure they're sealed properly, but that's the extent of what we can, you know, what we're really qualified to do as home inspectors. Determine the existence or condition of polybutylene, polyethylene, or similar plastic piping. This seems to be an area of big contention. There's a million different insurance carriers out there. Most people are having us do a 4-point and win, and every different carrier has different opinions on polybutylene, polyethylene, think PEX, or other plastic piping. So when we see it, we call it out. If it's stamped, we're letting you know what it is. We describe the materials. I'm going to show you again what that looks like and even how we might help you through an insurance process with that. And lastly, inspect or test for gas or fuel leaks or indications thereof. And yet, all of our home inspectors have a gas leak detector. It's a little inexpensive tool from Home Depot. Our only job is to keep fresh batteries in it for the 1 or 2 times a year we really need it. And we kind of go around the connections. And if there is something, we're going to let you know. I pulled a few contrasting home inspection reports. The first one is going to be a house I did recently, and it had several issues. But we're going to start at the top and go the way down. Before I get started, does anybody have any questions they want to put in the chat on anything we just covered? Anything at all? I would love engagement, please. Fair enough. Let's start with this one. We'll start with the descriptions. The water heater was an electric 40-gallon A.O. Smith that was in the attached garage. I left the model and the serial number on there. It was a recovery versus a tankless, and it was built in 2002, which makes it 18 years old. It is near the end of its useful life. The water pipe service material that's behind the walls going through the house, it was CPVC. It was a newer house built in 2002. The water supply, think from the shutoff under the sink up to the fixture, we found copper, we found PEX, we found PVC. PEX would be polyethylene. So you can see already, just by being observant and adding descriptions, we're exceeding the scope of a home inspection to give you a level of detail that just makes it easier for your clients to own a home. The main water valve, the shutoff, was on the right exterior wall towards the back behind the fence. The main shutoff was at the meter, and the meter was located buried in the front on the right side by the curtain. The disclaimers are really just a repeat of what was directly in the standards of practice. We start with some positive observations. The clean out, we saw two of them, one in the driveway, one on the side of the house by the air conditioner, and they look to be okay. Incidentally, we don't inspect the sewer lines with a home inspection, but we do have the sewer cameras on a lot of our vehicles. And if you're getting a package, we can get some discounted pricing there too. But having the sewer scoped potentially can save your clients tens of thousands of dollars, and we save them that kind of money on a weekly basis, I promise you.
Hey, Vito.
Yes, sir.
Great opportunity for a commercial there. Just wanted to remind everybody that, as Vito said, our comfort package includes the full home inspection, typically the 4-point and wind, because most of the homes that we do need them, as well as either the air quality mold or the sewer scope. And that comes with a 10% discount to your buyer. Our sleep well package comes with the full home inspection, 4-point and wind, air quality mold, and the sewer scope. And that comes with a 15% discount to your buyer. And with the sleep well package, if anything that we find in the process of the home inspection makes your buyer walk away, we will do the second full home inspection for them, package included, at cost, meaning that Rock Solid makes zero on it. Obviously, we still have to pay our inspector. We still have other ancillary costs that go into it, but it's typically about a 30% savings on the second one, because we do want to make sure we treat our clients like family. As you can imagine, when you start adding ancillary products, the prices go up. So we want to make sure that we take care of that buyer the best as possible. So we do offer the second one on the sleep well package at cost. May, we had a Mother's Day special at 19.14% off our packages. That's off the base pricing. So that is concluding this week, and we always try and make sure that we do something creative for our promotions around our packages. But our heroes, we are still, for the rest of the year, every day offering 20.20% off of our packages, because we want to make sure we take care of those that take care of us. So always check out our website, or don't be afraid to ask us. Facebook has whatever promos we might be running, but we're always happy to share those with you, because again, we do want to make sure that we give the most comprehensive package in the industry. Thanks, Vito.
Thank you, sir. All right, fuel lines. In this case, we found some rusted. Why is rust important? And simple. It's if you don't do anything about it, it gets worse. So better handle it now while it's a small issue before it does lead to things like leaking. The hose bibs were always tested. And just a quick aside, when we do the home inspection, we're doing the exterior, the roof, the attic, the garage, and then we move into turning all the plumbing on and running it for 30 minutes, at which point we do the thermal scans. And then as we do the bathrooms, that's where we get into moisture meters and all of that, and I'll show you. Here's what an irrigation system tests like. I turned it on, I took a picture, I made sure that I put it back to off the way I found it, and there it is. It gave me water when I called for it. Why do we say always recommend having a system-wide evaluation performed? Because 90% of it's underground. I have no idea what's going to happen when you run it a few weeks, or when you run all 4 zones running for 40 minutes, or any of that stuff. And by the way, the first lawnmower that comes by after me is going to go over a couple of those heads and break them anyway. So it's just a snapshot in time, but at least the system's working. Okay, main water valve, that's right here. It appeared okay. Water meter, when we go in, when we start the outside and we make sure that there's no water running, we're checking the water flow valve to make sure that dial's not spinning. Because if all the water's off in the house and the dial's spinning, guess what? You have a water leak underground, and we're going to catch that for you. We test temperatures at all fixtures. In this case, it just would not get up to or over 100. So already I can tell you that an 18-year-old house is starting to tell its story. Water heater's getting old. It's not the end of the world. Maybe it's just the settings, and they would have to take that panel off the water heater and adjust it. But at least here, we know we're not getting hot enough water. We've got some leaks at the faucet handles, and this was in a couple of different places. We're calling out minor things like a deteriorated caulk, simply because water could get behind the caulk, get down the wall, and you never see it because everything's tiled up. Test all the showers. Where the temperature is between 100 and 120, it's okay. If the faucet handles aren't working, we're calling that out as well. That's also a 4-point issue. It's literally a 4-point issue based on their form. Leaks. This is kind of it wasn't the end of the world. It just to try to shut the water off. The water's dripping. It's a nuisance. And then some things were just okay, just like that. Toilets are flushed. We give them the Elvis test. The Elvis test is when I stand over it, grip it in between my knees, and I shake myself like Elvis doing a dance. And I go, hey. And I'm telling you, it is the dumbest thing. It's about the only joke I know. And every single time the client laughs. It's just an icebreaker. And if I look like an idiot, I'm happy to take one for the team if it puts someone at ease, right? No jokes. I know I always look like an idiot, but there it is. Here it is. The water heater didn't have any obvious defects. Being old is not a defect in and of itself, and I will stand by that till my last day. But seriously, for a home inspection, it's not in and of itself. It's just, you know what? It's been performing longer than we would have expected it to. Just be aware. Water pipe leaking. So this one was funny because I actually tested it with a moisture meter. And I didn't need to because there was a puddle of water right there. And I'm like, oh my God. I knew by the time I was done with this house, I was tired. But we found some leaks. We add the picture from the thermal camera. In this case, the leak happened after I took the thermal camera picture, but the reverse also happens. Sometimes the thermal will catch the leak before it becomes visible. Here's an example of polyethylene piping. The gray stuff right here. Why is it important? Because some insurance companies will not insure homes with PEX manufactured prior to 2009. Every once in a while, we can see the stamping on it if it hasn't worn off, and if it's clearly marked, we can tell you, but sometimes the length of it's short, it's been cut off, or it's older and it's worn and we don't know. So we're just gonna have to take it on a case-by-case basis. Were there plumbing permits? Was there a complete repipe? Is it marked? Is it not marked? What's the condition look like? But we will make an estimate based on whether it's pre or post 2009, and we'll put that on the 4-point as well. Even though and a quick note, even though it's a real easy fix, just to replace it from here and here, we do recommend letting a plumber do something that simple and checking the rest of the house, because we have found, it's rare, but there will be, say, PVC or copper coming out of the wall, only to have a plumber get back there and find they took this skinny stuff where it wasn't supposed to be and ran it for 15, 20, 30, 50 feet, plumbing the whole house with it at a huge expense to the buyer. So anytime we can eliminate that as a risk, we'd like to. And a quick note, in addition to the thermal scans and running the plumbing for 30 minutes, we're using our moisture meter readings around all the exposed valves and under cabinet plumbing drains and everything else. Ditto for under windows, and that's not part of plumbing, but there you have it. And here's these readings were okay. And here's what they looked like under the thermal camera. And that was a busy house. This house was less so, and we'll go quickly through it, and then we'll open it up for questions, and I want you all to have questions. But this house was, this one, the water heater was newer. There was a lot less issues with it. We had the clean out. The hose bibs were tested. Now the control box wouldn't work. Although I was able to get the irrigation on, I could not shut the water off. I had to unplug it to do so. So that's an issue. And even though I wouldn't expect your home inspector to know this, I know that those little magnets at the valve box, they're tiny, they're electromagnets, they're a few dollars each. Your irrigation guy will be happy to charge you $400 to replace a $10 part, and they go bad all the time. So I'm not too worried about it. I just called it out and they'll get it fixed. Main water valve was completely buried. I couldn't see it except for the dial. And everything else pretty much went smoothly. We put the house through the same paces as the other one without the issues. You can see the moisture meter and the thermal camera in all the areas. And that was it. So that's what a rock solid home inspection looks like. I hope I've shown that we substantially adhere and exceed in a safe manner the standards of practice. And I would love to know your thoughts. Does anyone have any questions on anything we brought up so far?
Yes, there is a question.
Say it again.
The question is, what is acceptable for a good 4-point for insurance credit? So, because that would actually be more of a win, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and it's a good question, but remember, all right, so when we're talking, I kind of have the benefit of experience because I know what's likely to get kicked back or not, but we don't determine insurability, eligibility, or any of that stuff, and every single carrier out there has different rules. As a general rule of thumb, the newer, the better. If it's an old house, if there's a complete repipe, you're going to get a better rate than you would if it still has 60-year-old plumbing. And I have the benefit of working closely with some great insurance reps and some very tough ones that have taught me a whole bunch about the process just in the last year. I hope that at least, I know it's an incomplete answer, but I hope it's kind of what you were looking for from me.
Vito, could
Yes,
you
sir.
expand a little bit on the sewer camera? Do you go from every clean out you find, just the farthest one away? Just expand a little bit, please.
So that is a fantastic question, William. And what I'm looking for, most houses now have one clean out, and it's typically at or near the building foundation. And going in will run from there to the city tap, and then I'll turn it back up under the house until I get to the first tie-in. That will give me a good idea of what we're dealing with. If there is no clean out, or if there's multiple clean outs, then I'm wondering where, if they're on the same line and I can get to the city, there's no need for both because it's redundant. If they're two separate lines, I will run both, and I'm not gonna hit your client up for extra money unless there's something like you tell me it's 1,000 square foot house and I get there and it's 3 1,000 square foot houses. We're gonna have a conversation, but you get the idea. And sometimes there's no clean out, there's no nothing, and I have to try and go in from the roof. As long as there's an access, I can reasonably get the job done. If there's no way in, we're not going to charge you for that. But I want
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, my
That's
pleasure.
good.
Thank you. Great question. And the next sewer scope you have, William, I'm going to discount for you $25 for your client. Thank you for a great question.
We also have another question. Will a slow draining bathtub be a problem?
Not if it's just usual hair and stuff in the drain, but there's the rub. How can I tell you that if I can't see it? So when it's a slow drain, it's simple solutions first. Get use one of those home rotter, the little plastic coat hanger looking things, and try and clear it out. Then use some Drano. If that doesn't work, then you know what, you may want to have a plumber. Unless I'm getting it at multiple tubs and multiple sinks, and there's other issues involved. There's way more that goes involved with just a black and white thing. You need, and forgive me, it's important for you to have a good inspector that you trust to take everything into context and give you the best course of action based on his experience. We're not specialists, we're not experts, but I got to tell you that the guys I've worked with, we have one power. The hair stands up on our neck when we think something's in big trouble. But simple solutions first. Great question.
And Vito, just to clarify, from that multiple drain issue that might be slow, that's where on site a sewer scope may be recommended, so we'd be able to see what those pipes are holding from the home out to the municipality. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay.
Let me add. You know what? Forgive me. I'm a home inspector, and I have the caveat: unless the problem is somewhere in the house where we can't get to it. But yeah, the sewer scope will take it another 90%. It will at least eliminate major issues like that.
And then just as a reminder, Vito, with our warranties that we offer through Residential Warranty Services, the sewer guard gets extended from the 90 days to 6 months with a sewer scope. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yes. Good point. I'm
Okay, we
getting
got
about.
something. You ready for this one, Vito?
I hope so. We've got 4 minutes left.
Okay. What is the unlikely event that you accidentally break an inspected item? Who pays for the damage? I know the contract states that it falls into the buyer, but
Okay. I personally have never damaged anything in my long career. I'm just kidding. I was in an attic. The whole house had polybutylene that was repiped with PVC. It was brittle. It was buried under insulation. I busted a riser. I had water. Oh my God, it was a nightmare. It went to insurance. I stayed there to make sure. I stayed at that place, shut the water off, took ownership of the entire thing. We made sure that it was taken care of, and the transaction still went through. It went to insurance, and we owned it. If we make a mistake, we own it. Now, the other side of that is if I'm in a place and things are shut down or things are covered, buried, hidden, whatever, depending on the situation, I may hold to the standards of practice and not move personal items, not open valves without permission. You see where I'm going with that. If I get the sense that the seller is trying to hide something, we may have a different conversation. But I can promise you one, if we make a mistake, we're going to own it. And two, if there's an obstruction, we're not going to sucker punch you with it. We're going to have a conversation and come to a consensus, at least about what the best next step is going to be. Does that help?
yeah, she said thank you.
My pleasure. We treat every client like.
And when I think of our motto of treating our clients like family, that does go not just for the buyer, but the seller. We understand that we are in their house. If we unfortunately do cause damage, we will take responsibility for it. So if that were to happen, please reach out to myself or the office, and we will walk through and figure out a solution to the best that makes everybody as happy as possible. But we do take care and make sure that we are treating a home as it is somebody's home, whether that's the seller or the buyer. We make sure that we take our pride in that and do no damage.
I just want to add to that. We've got 1 minute left. So first, thank you everybody for joining, all the great questions. And I'm going to be sad after next week when I'm full-time into training and not able to do these anymore. But I just want to, even though we don't like officially have the core values like a corporation would, every inspector that I train personally, I stress, in addition to being objective to what it is we're seeing, we use the acronym HOME. Humility. We're not the smartest guys in the room and we want to help. Ownership, like we just talked about, we own what we're doing. Mindfulness, every time is the first time. And empathy. We understand all the work that goes into just getting us on site. And we hope that shows through in everything we do. Thanks again, everybody. Thank you for choosing Rock Solid Home Inspections. And stay sane out there. It's crazy.
Thanks, Vito. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.